Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to my channel, and hello if you have stumbled across this little corner of the internet. This video is a craft with me. I'm going to be painting these two little miniatures for my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's the first time I've painted miniatures, so I decided to film them. I have borrowed a load of Citadel paints from my friend Martin, but I also pulled out some paint from my stash, including this little artist loft set where I pulled out the Viridian. I'd borrowed 3 of his paintbrushes, but I also pulled out a load of mine as well, unsure what I was going to use at this point. I started off by painting the miniatures, painting the most delicate features. So I took this skin tone colour, and this is Cadian flesh tones. Elves tend to have coppery skin in the folklore, and my character is a wood elf. So I felt that this was the right kind of colour. It wasn't too dark or too brown where she's got brown hair, but it dried a really nice colour, so I would definitely recommend that one. I did all of her face, her neck, her hands, part of her leg, and made sure to cover all of anywhere her skin was exposed in this colour, and then I went on to do the same on the second model as well. I later found that this was the worst plan in the world and I'll explain why a little bit later on, but that's where I started. That was what I did first. I then moved on to this brown, and this is Mournfang brown. I really like this shade. It's kind of the same colour brown. It's actually a little bit lighter, but a similar shade of brown to my hair. And I gave this character, her name is Squiggly, I gave her a lot of my own features. So the fact that she has brown hair, I have brown hair, her favourite colour is green, my favourite colour is green, etc. Because I'd watched quite a few videos of sort of for beginner D&D players before I started playing, and they suggested putting a lot of your own features into some of your characters to help roleplay. So I painted the hair and the boots on each of these models. I also painted the base on one of them where she is meant to be a wood elf. I thought, oh, perhaps I should make it sort of forest floor, but she actually, if you've done the Shrine of Savras campaign, she actually lives in Neverwinter, which is a city. So I ended up covering that up a little bit later on because it didn't quite work for what I wanted, and also her boots are brown, and if the floor was going to be brown as well, I just didn't think it was going to stand out. Once I'd finished the brown, and you see I've got the flesh tone out just for any mistakes that I make, I grabbed some kitchen roll and a little water dish. This water dish is actually from a tray of desserts from Costco. We went to Matt's cousin's and she had all these little desserts in glass dishes. And I was like, oh, they look pretty good. They've worked out really handy for crafting. So I'll definitely have to have a look in Costco again, see if I can get some of those. So once they were dry, and they took minutes to dry, it wasn't very long at all, I went over and did a second coat of both the flesh tone and the brown. I also decided, so these figures are human sorcerer figures because I couldn't find an elf sorcerer figure that I liked, that I imagined my character to look like, so I ended up buying these. Therefore, the character does not have the trademark pointy elf ears, so I decided to paint my own, but I kept doing it really well on one side and really badly on the other. So I think I spent about 20 minutes just painting elf ears on these two figures. They worked out really well in the end, but it took such a long time, and I was starting to run out of patience a little bit by the end. But I am really pleased with how they look. I'm pleased I went to the effort of doing it. I was at first just going to say they were hidden in her hair, but I'm happy that she has her little pointy ears. I then went over and did a second coat on both, on the flesh tone and on the brown, and then I went on to this silver colour, and this is called Lead Belcher. It's sort of a darker silver, and I painted the sort of strap of this cape silver, which I didn't like, to be honest. I went on and painted it a different colour a bit later on because it looked like weird jewellery rather than part of the cape. But what I did do was paint a necklace on this character here. So the figure itself had a necklace imprinted into the plastic, or sort of embossed on the plastic. So I painted over with the silver, and then I took that artist loft Viridian paint, and using a paintbrush, I tried really hard to just do a tiny dab, because my character, I've told you she's a wood elf, she's also an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, so she spellcasts, and she has a spell focus, which is an emerald pendant that was her mother's. She doesn't know that's her spell focus. Her whole backstory is that she sort of doesn't really know where her powers have come from, but that's how she casts. She casts through that necklace. Because that was really hard to do, I ended up cracking out these dotting tools that I've had since I used to do nail art, and that worked out much better. I do still paint my nails regularly, but I don't do the kind of designs like I used to, which is a shame really, but maybe I'll have to start doing that again. Although I have 39 million hobbies, so perhaps not. I then took this dark green, and this is called Caliban green. It's just a tiny bit darker than I wanted, and dried darker. So I was unsure of this at first. I think it worked well by the end. But I spent some time, I painted her sleeves, her skirts, and her capes all in this green. I was unsure on that arm whether that was like a wrist brace or sleeve, and I ended up just painting the whole sleeve green. This character looks more commonly dressed. The other figure looks like she's wearing sort of light armour, and my character's kind of ended up with this band of rebels. She isn't a trained fighter, so I wonder if this figure kind of suits her better, as it's more commonplace, which is kind of one of the reasons I just did a sleeve rather than wrist guards. I wasn't sure on the colour, so I did take the Artist Loft Viridian and painted the back of the cape of one of the figures and just left it to dry for a little while to see if I liked that colour. And I, Amy, love that colour. However, in comparison to the models of my friends and the colours that they've got and the kind of world in which our characters live, I felt it was a little bit too bright. She is a common person, she's not royalty, she probably wouldn't have such rich colours, so I did end up going and painting over that with the darker green. I just committed to it in the end. But it was worth the experiment because you can't see it once it's finished anyway. You'll notice that I've also painted the bases black, although I cut the footage of that for some reason, because as I say, I felt she suited a more stonework, more city-based base, and here I am just going over that Viridian acrylic paint, and it covered absolutely fine. So that was really fiddly, and this is where I realised I should have done this dark green first. I should not have started with the faces and the hair and things, because I just kept getting green on everything, and later on I just went through and had to do like 39 million coats of all the colours that I'd messed up, which was really annoying. But something that was much more annoying than that was my next idea, which was to pull the cape back a little bit to paint, and I snapped it off. So I had to mute this footage because I swore. But it did actually end up being much easier to paint because I just held the little spell thing, majiggy, and then painted each of the sides, and there's me just looking to see how bad the damage was. But to be honest, I thought I'd have to glue it back together, and I got away with just kind of snapping it back together. So I don't know when it was printed, whether it was printed in one piece or two, but I was able to put it back together really easily, so panic averted. And it did make it much easier painting the back of this model. The other one was, the cape actually came back further on the other model, so it wasn't so bad, but that one it was really close. Once I'd finished the green, I actually did 2 coats of the green. Like, I did 2 coats of all the paints, but obviously I didn't, this video is long enough, I didn't want you to have to see me doing 2 coats of everything. I went over and I repainted the bases. So as I said, I decided that the bases needed to be more stone effect, so I went in with black first and then messed up the boots, so I had to touch the boots back up with brown, which was the moral of this. Like, honestly, if you ever paint a mini, start with the largest area and work your way to the smallest. I did not do that at all, and yeah, I paid for that. This took me an entire day in the end. I then went in with the brown and I painted the breastplate on the armour of this model. And then I painted the other model's got sort of more of a dress on, so I just kind of painted the top part. I tried to make it a little bit fashionable, and there wasn't any on this model. It was quite easy, there was distinct lines to follow, but on the other model I kind of had to create my own lines once you got down past the bust. And to do that I had to turn the model every which way. Honestly, I think I just kept turning it around in circles, trying to get at it at all angles, just to make sure that I could create the lines that I wanted. Once the brown was dried, I took some black and I went through and I painted the belt. There was only one of the models that had a belt, but I painted that black. Unfortunately as well, the sun was moving around to the back of the house, so the lighting keeps going a bit skew-iff, which is annoying. And then I took the silver and I painted, she's got two little daggers on her side, so I used a really fine brush to paint those. And if I haven't mentioned already, the black that I used was Aberrant black, and then it's the same silver that I used earlier. I then took this brush here, I dabbed a little bit of black paint, squeezed out a little bit of my white acrylic that I just had in my stash, and just use this mat. I absolutely love these mats because they just get washed in the sink. You just mix literally on the mat itself. I just mixed some grey, wiped as much off onto a piece of kitchen roll as I could. So you can see I'm trying to make sort of different shades of grey, so I've got various different shades I can pull from. And you wipe as much off the brush as you can, and then you literally, it's called dry brushing, you just kind of wipe the brush, dab the brush over an area. So because I'd painted the base black, and then I did this with sort of some really dark greys, some lighter greys, and just kept dabbing and dabbing with all these different sort of shades of grey, it created a really nice stone effect, which you can't see too well here, but you will see better in the final shots of the model. And then I took the old trusty green back out, and then touched up every area that I'd messed up again. And then I decided on this model that she should also have a necklace. So to create that, because there was no necklace to follow, I used a dotting tool. I created a silver circle in the middle of her chest and then drew two lines from that up onto her shoulders to give the illusion of a necklace. I didn't do round the back of her neck because obviously when I reattach her cape you wouldn't see it anyway, so I didn't see the point in going to all that trouble. And then I did the same as I did on the previous one and then created stone effect on the bottom. This time I added a little bit of brown just to create it a bit more of an earthy, dirty kind of stone. Then I took the green again and I decided to give her a hairband because why not? No one's hair just goes up into a ponytail all by itself. And I decided to colour coordinate. And she's got a little green hairband, which was a little bit fiddly to do. I probably had to touch up the hair and because I probably messed that up, but I really like the effect of it actually. I'm really pleased I decided to do that. I then took this blue. Now this is a blue wash. It's called Drakenhoff Nightshade, and it was given to me to go over the spell in her hand so that it still had some translucency. However, it was way too dark a blue than I really wanted, to be honest. And looking at it, I just knew it wasn't quite the effect that I wanted. And I think sort of halfway through this one, I just kind of gave up. I did try washing it off with water, but that paint sticks. Like the minute you use it, it sticks. So I kind of gave up with that. And then I took this wash here, which I thought was black when he gave it to me, but it's like a really dark brown. And it's called Agrax Earth Shade, and it's a dark wash. It kind of works the same way as a black wash if you're familiar with that, and essentially you just slap it on all over. The thicker the darker essentially, and what it does is it kind of seeps into all the recesses and all the crevices, and it creates sort of that kind of shadow contrast kind of effect. It went into the face of the models and kind of created facial features. I had actually borrowed a red paint and I tried to create lips and it was the most disastrous thing I've ever seen. So that's why she's literally got no facial features whatsoever. But this wash kind of gives the illusion of a face. My friend does think that I need a little bit more on the capes. He doesn't think that they're dark enough, but I quite like them, so I've kind of left them as they are. Plus, I'd already given the paints back when he said that. And then thinking about this spell, I thought, what can I do? I went into my drawers. That sounded rude. I went into one of my desk drawers and found these puff paints and stickles that I've had for a bazillion years. And I thought, do you know what? I can do something with these. So I squirted out a bit of each of the 3 colours. So I've got a purple, a blue and a pink. They're from Dovecraft and they're the 3D pearl paints. And as I say, I just squirted out a bit of each of them, and I decided to, on the model that's got the kind of more lightning bolt / mind flare spell, I decided to do a purple middle with blue tentacles coming out and sort of pink right on the tips. The purple was the hardest paint to use, and I'm not sure whether it was just because the blue from before was still a little bit dry, still a little bit wet, or the purple was just harder to use. But it took so many more coats. The blue went on quite nicely, and then the pink, I don't know why I'm wiping it, probably just got a bit in the wrong place, and the pink kind of just finished off the tips really nicely. I really liked that little addition. On the other model, I decided to do it the other way round, so it was blue out into purple, I believe. So I did blue out into purple just so they were slightly different. I didn't want them to be exactly the same. So I went over and I did several coats of that. It did make them quite opaque, but the vivacity just, for me, made it even better. I forgot to do the back of that one, so then I had to turn it over and do that. And then I took this stickles, and I'm sorry I can't remember the colours. One of them was frozen. This lighter blue was frozen, but I don't remember the colour of the other one. I'm wondering if I'll show it. I don't think I do. But what I did is I just grabbed a couple of fresh brushes, and wherever there's purple, I used the darker stickles, and wherever there's blue, I used this frozen one, because this frozen one's kind of made up of light blue and silver glitter, and the other one's blue and purple glitter. So I just kind of dabbed it on. There was no point in wiping the brush. It was such a small area that I just ended up kind of just putting it on the tip of the brush and just dabbing it on really gently. And I did that on both the models. I didn't have a pink stickles, so I didn't have one to use for the very, very ends. So you kind of do lose a little bit of the pink by the end, which is a bit of a shame actually. I did quite like the contrast of it. I found with the purple, where it was not as bright as the blue, just putting it straight on worked quite well as well. And yeah, I'm really, really pleased that I chose to use these. I think it's got such a cool effect, and it's so bright in comparison to her clothing. So it just really, really stands out. I then took the green 3D pearl paint and this bright green stickles that I probably had over from Christmas project, and decided to do something a little bit better with her necklace, just because I liked how much the spell was glowing, and I felt that her necklace should glow when she cast a spell, so she would know that it was her spell focus. But I just wanted it to stand out better. So I first off took my dotting tool and used a little bit of the 3D pearl paint and went over the sort of emeralds, quote unquote, that I'd done previously. And then I put the green stickles over the top. I do think having the 3D pearl paint underneath helps the glitter to reflect. So I'm really pleased that I did that. Oh, and that stickles is literally just called green. And I did that on both the models, and I have to say, it's really, really effective. Now, I probably should have used super glue for these magnets. I decided to add magnets on the bottom. Let me explain why, and then I'll explain how. So, essentially, my friend Martin's got magnets on the bottom of his character. And if his character is knocked unconscious or falls prone, that means lying down, he takes him off the magnets, lays him down, and I wanted to do the same, but I didn't know how he'd done it. So I decided, I had these little tiny magnets I'd made for my best friend, for his little girl, this Winnie the Pooh photo album a really long time ago, and I had all these tiny little magnets left over. So I first off glued a magnet to the base of the characters and to the base of the actual base character. It's really hard to, the bottom of the character and then the little circle base that came with it. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Then what I did is I built up hot glue. You can see the one on the left, I've kind of just made like a squirt of hot glue. And what I was trying to do was trying to create like a rocky mound that she could stand on. It wasn't quite big enough, so I went through and added a bit more hot glue. And then I tried kind of dabbing it with the dotting tool because I wanted some sort of effect to it. And then I got some foil and thought, oh, that will work. If you crinkle up some foil and kind of bash it in, it will give it a texture. That one I'd let to dry for a bit too long, so it was too hard, I didn't really do anything. And then I had to keep building it up because it didn't look right and she didn't sit right on it. So I ended up, I think there's 2 magnets on the circle base and then 1 magnet on the bottom of the character. I will have to go back and add super glue to the ones on the characters because they're not sticking as well as the ones on the base. And then I just kind of let the hot glue dry. Once the hot glue was dried, I then painted them. So I did them the same way I did the base of the characters, black first and then with a mixture of greys and browns to create the stone effect, which is what you'll be seeing me do now. The only other thing that I did that I thought was really fun is I glued magnets to the inside of the capes so that if my character does lie down or dies or is knocked unconscious or anything like that, when you lay her down, she stays attached to the base because she's got magnets in the back of the capes. I ended up having to do 2 magnets for that because the magnets weren't working very well through the plastic of the cape. So I did have to add 2 to the back of her capes. And then I had to paint over them in green, just obviously to disguise them. And I did paint the bottoms of the magnets black, but to be honest, it's peeled off, so that was a waste of time. But yeah, I just did the same thing on this other one. And then before I reveal the final ones, I just want to say that the dog found one of these on the floor. I'd knocked it off by accident a few days later and chewed it. And I was really sad at first because it taken me ages to make. But actually, the boy's a little artist because he's made it even rockier. So I hope you enjoy having a look. I'm about to reveal the final models. So after 39 hours, or what feels like 39 hours, I am finally done. So I've got a lot of mess to clear up, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm actually going to go and have a bath in a minute, and then we're treating ourselves to McDonald's for dinner. Let me just pop this IKEA lid down, just so that I can put my figures on it and you don't have to stare at the paint on these mats. I do love these mats though, because all I need to do is just wash that in the sink and all the paint will come off. It's amazing. So I'm sure I mentioned in the voiceover that my character is a sorcerer. She is a wood elf, but I couldn't find a wood elf sorcerer figurine that I liked, so I ended up buying human sorcerers. I bought this packet here, Nolza's Marvelous Minis, I think it was called, human sorcerer, and they are the 2 that it came with. Obviously you can't do quite as much detail because they're very, very small. And this is how I have finished them. So this was the one I thought I was going to use as my main character. So I've done all of them in dark green and brown because that's the colours I imagine that she wears. I do think I need to add a little bit of detail to her belt buckle, because she's got a black belt on, but there's a little buckle there at the front. I feel like that needs a little bit of detail of something, so I'll add something in. She's got a green hair tie and then brown hair, and then I've done, because she's an Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, she does a lot of psychic. She has a lot of psychic abilities, and most of the spells that she uses affect people's mind. So my friend said to me that he imagined that her powers were sort of blue and purple, and I ended up doing that with paint that I already had and some what's it called, stickles, some stickles glitter. And she wears an emerald pendant, which is her spell focus, and so I used a little bit of green stickles to create that pendant. She also carries 2 daggers, which is one of the reasons I thought that this was going to be the model that I used. So she's pretty much finished. I feel like her thigh might need a little bit of a touch up, but I can do that off camera in a minute. But I really like this one, and I really like this one purely because of the spell. I just think this is really, really cool, and how it's come out is just amazing. And I've done it in exactly the same colours and in exactly the same way. I used stickles again to create that necklace. but this one is more of a sort of dress, I suppose, that she's got on. Oh, I need to do her thigh as well, actually, because there appears to be some brown paint that's spilt. But those are the finished pieces, and it came with these just flat black discs. But my friend Martin, who has kindly lent me all of the paints I used except for the blue and purple, his character is on little magnets, and then whenever he gets knocked prone or he dies in the campaign, he knocks the magnet off, and then he lays him sideways. So I really wanted to do something similar, and I had these tiny magnets that I made a mini album for my best friend's daughter a while ago, a Winnie the Pooh album, and I ended up using those, and then to create this kind of rocky bottom to it, you'll have seen in the video, I used hot glue, which I just thought would be a really good thing to do. I've ended up using 2 magnets on the base, 1 magnet on her base basically, and then there's 2 magnets on the back of her cape on both figures, so that if for any reason she has to lie down or she's knocked prone, then she goes sideways and then she's stuck on with the magnet like that. So it's a bit weird because her legs are sticking up in the air, but it works, and it will work for the purpose of what we're doing. So both of them do the same thing, and they both lie flat. And what's really cool is that I made sure the magnets were the same way, so I can swap the base, the base plates over if I want to have a different one. The second one I felt went better, which is why I put this figure on it. But as I say, that was the one. I'm not sure which one I want to use. Sorry, I'm aware how zoomed in I am. I don't really know how much you can see. I'm not sure which one I like the best. I feel like I actually quite like this one on the right. I didn't think I was going to. But I'm going to take both with me and then see what my friends think and see which one they think I should go with. She's more of an armour, like she's got more of a breastplate, whereas that's more of a dress. So I don't know, perhaps you can have 2 different outfits. It's the same character, isn't it? So for now, the 2 Squigglies and I say farewell. So here she is with her finished belt. So just a little bit of silver on her buckle. And then what I would like from you is to let me know which of the models you prefer. So I'm sorry that I am using a really old phone and my camera's not brilliant. Something that I am looking into upgrading my phone very soon. But do let me know, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the open stance one with the kind of more zigzaggy mind flare style spell, or there's this one where she's sort of got the daggers, she's wearing more kind of armour, and then this spell, I don't know how much you'll notice, it took me ages to notice as well, but it's coming out of her hand, but the end is the shape of her hand, like she's sneaking into people's minds. So do let me know which of the 2 you prefer. I'll be interested to hear your opinions. But for now, all that's left for me to do is to say farewell, go and enjoy a bath, and worry about this mess tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at these. I hope you enjoyed watching me make them. I can't say that I'll be doing this again in a hurry. It took me a really long time, and I shouldn't need another character for a while, but I am really happy with how they've come out. I am really pleased. So do let me know your thoughts, and I will see you again very soon. Love you all, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.